You know when you fall down an internet rabbit hole where one internet search leads to another and suddenly hours have disappeared because you were so invested and engaged in what you were learning? That's called a curiosity loop, and it's how real learning happens. I experienced this just recently when I was browsing Wikipedia's quote of the day. It was by Renaissance philosopher Michel de Montaigne. I was familiar with his name, but I didn't really know much about him because I never formally studied him in school. So I decided today was the day. I was going to broaden my horizons. And one click led after another, and suddenly I found myself deep in this world of ideas about education and curiosity and the purpose of learning itself. And I found that Montaigne, back in the 1500s, actually had the same ideas about education that I share with my colleagues today. You see, Montaigne had this radical idea back then that a person's education should follow their curiosity. He was writing in the 16th century France, and he believed that learning should not be about memorizing facts, but about engaging deeply with ideas and their practical, hands-on applications. Sounds familiar, right? He used this idea of bees collecting nectar. It was a metaphor. Bees gather nectar from lots of different plants to create honey. Likewise, students shouldn't just gather knowledge from a singular source and call it truth. They should gather it from multiple sources and transform it into something new. The metaphor emphasizes seeking a diversity of perspectives and to synthesize all those ideas into one's personal body of knowledge, and not to take any one person's take on the topic as pure truth. He argued that real education happens when we interact with the world, when we question assumptions, and explore ideas for ourselves. Instead of passive memorization, he championed active engagement, a belief that directly connects with how our minds naturally learn through curiosity. So this brings us to the curiosity loop, the mechanism behind deep, meaningful learning. And it happens in 4 steps. First, a question arises. We encounter something intriguing. Question mark. Then we explore. We seek answers, we read, we experiment, and think. Often in modern times, this begins with a Google search or whatever your search engine of choice is. And then discovery leads to new questions. So instead of reaching a dead end once we get our question answered, we generate new questions to explore. Usually one question will lead into a cascade of other questions. And then the process repeats itself. The cycle continues. We deepen our knowledge and engagement. It's a self-sustaining engine for learning, and every breakthrough leads to another layer of curiosity. So that brings me to what I really want to talk about, which is why traditional education doesn't support this mode of thinking. Montaigne, I'm sure, was not the first person to have this insight, nor was he the last, but his vision hasn't become the dominant model of formal education, not because it was forgotten, but because educational institutions are not designed to cultivate curiosity. Instead, formal schooling has been structured to produce conformity. Standardized tests, rigid curriculums, positive learning models. These things aren't necessarily bad. I'm not suggesting that there's some sort of sinister, controlling organization behind it all. But I'm suggesting that they just don't encourage students to think. And that's mainly because of a management issue. It's about crowd control. You got 2,000 kids in a high school. If you don't have some sort of order in place, the place will be chaos. I've worked in both settings. But there is good news. The real learning has always existed outside of the system. If you've ever pursued an idea just because it fascinated you, you've already reclaimed this type of learning. But how can we do it more often? Well, it's a lot of the same things I've already made videos on. 1, ask more questions. Instead of accepting knowledge at face value, ask why, ask how, ask what if. Second, you can follow your tangents. Allow yourself to go down those rabbit holes. Exploration is part of the process. I wouldn't call a distraction driven by curiosity to be a waste of time. The third thing you can do is synthesize ideas. Connect different concepts together, just like Montaigne's metaphorical bees. I imagine it like every thought leader has their own perspective, right? And someone else has a different perspective, and we can all see different sides of this issue. That's this metaphorical elephant truth thing. You can Google it. But the idea is that no one has a stronghold on truth, right? No one has the absolute truth. We all only have our perspective, and we can only compare our perspectives to each other's. So the fourth thing you can do is engage in reflection. Write, discuss, challenge your own understanding. Be willing to change your mind when information conflicts with what you thought you knew. Usually, things we learned first in our early development are inaccurate or are precise or oversimplified. We're often wrong, and that's okay because it's not a reflection of our self-worth, nor is it an attack on our ego. And this may require some humility. Being a student of life is a humble position. In fact, I just heard in a podcast the other day, like, if you're not wrong some of the time, if you think that you are right all the time, then you are implying that you are omniscient. I've yet to meet an actual human being who is actually omniscient. So let's wrap this up. Try this today. Here's your homework. Pick a topic today and let one question lead to another. Follow your curiosity, see where it takes you, and sharing your discoveries in the comments. I would love to hear what you've learned and what you're diving into. If you want to go deeper, I've got a few irons in the fire, some things I've been working on for you. You can check out my free curiosity course designed to help you harness the curiosity loop for lifelong learning. I'm also in the process of building a website, a hub where you can find that course as well as a course that's currently under design. I'm offering pre-orders to purchase access to the course. You'll be able to see it weekly as I build it, and you'll receive weekly email updates with new content, insights, and ways to get involved. Plus, you'll be on the inside track to shape our content and community as it grows. Remember, the best learning doesn't come from answers, it comes from better questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.